Creepy Neighbor by u/Marlusa91. There have been many situations in my life that could have been avoided if I chose to be an asshole instead of being nice and well-mannered. It goes without saying that this situation would have been avoided if I let go of the idea that I should always be polite. This is not a story of assault or life-threatening danger, but it was definitely creepy, and in my mind, it could have escalated to something more serious. The situation went like this. I used to be very friendly with an elderly man in my neighborhood. I felt bad because he seemed really lonely as he never had any company. At first, he would want a hug every time he saw me, which I didn't think was strange because hugging as a greeting or goodbye is very common from where I came from. He eventually asked if he could ask for my mobile number in case anything happens and if he needs help. He told me he had suffered a stroke years ago and both he and his wife were prone to falls that would result in broken bones. So, I gave him my mobile number. I would want someone to help my elderly relatives if they needed help in an emergency. He would then frequently ring my doorbell to share leftover food with me, which I appreciated at that time. Then, he would come to my apartment almost daily and ring my doorbell until I answer the door. He once rang 6 times. He also once invited himself into my apartment when I opened the door and proceeded to remove his shirt to show me a scar on his chest. I told him that I believed him when he said that he had a scar and he did not need to undress. He took off his shirt anyway. If he did not see me for more than a day or two, he would call me to see where I was and what I was doing. By this point, when he would hug me, he would sometimes lightly bounce up and down or rock side to side. When that would happen, I would push away and tell him that I don't need a hug. I would make up an excuse like I had a cold or flu-like symptoms. Well, this was pre-pandemic, and I did not want to spread anything to him. Shortly after this, 3 separate things happened on separate days that make my skin crawl when I think back on them. First, he put his hands on the sides of my head, gently squeezed, rubbed his hands on my hair, and pulled my head towards his. I extended my hand against his shoulder and gently pushed away. I told him that I am not a touchy person and I don't really like to be grabbed. This is not true and not something I was saying in the moment. Second, he ran his fingers through my hair after I gently pushed away from his dancing hug. I told him again that I am not the type of person who likes physical affection. And last, he gave me a regular hug, no weird movements, but then caressed my face with his hand and pinched my nose. I felt so uncomfortable and gross. I pushed away and told him that I had to get back to work. He slowly but firmly grabbed my arm and tried to initiate another hug. I pushed him away again, and I told him that I do not need another hug. Each of these 3 things happened in my apartment, not on the sidewalk in plain view of others. After the last encounter, I made the decision to never allow him within arm's reach of me again. I felt and still feel that his actions were gradually escalating. I did not care to let things escalate any further. When he would see me walking my dog and approaches, I would quickly walk the other way and not respond to him. He eventually realized that I was avoiding him and followed me back to my apartment. He asked me if it was something he said, and I was direct and told him that I do not like being touched, yet he insisted on touching my face and hair in ways that made me uncomfortable. He responded with, "I wish you said something." I did, multiple times, and he still tries to talk to me when he sees me walking my dog, but I continue to completely ignore him. There are individuals who take advantage of certain assumptions younger people tend to make. I made the assumption that I should be unquestionably kind and social with this man since he was elderly and lonely. I made an assumption that my neighbor was just a vulnerable and frail person. I made the assumption that nothing threatening would happen due to his fragile health. And I admit, it's entirely possible that I am reacting too much. So, how does this pertain to being an asshole sometimes, instead of always being a well-mannered female? The truth is that I did begin to feel uncomfortable long before those 3 incidents took place. I felt uncomfortable enough to ignore him when he would ring my doorbell again and again, and I felt uncomfortable enough to ignore his phone calls. I felt uncomfortable the moment he gave that first dancing hug. Yet, every time, I chose to ignore that feeling of discomfort as it would have been seen as me being impolite to an elderly person. In those moments, I valued the optics of good manners more than what my gut was telling me. I will always choose to be kind to others, but going forward, I will be more alert and no longer choose appearing to be polite over my own sense of safety. Creepy old neighbor insists that I have a margarita by u/Gucci_Romaine. Hey guys, I thought I feel like I can post this now as my weird and creepy neighbor moved out 2 weeks ago. I'll give you some background first. I moved into my apartment pretty quick to escape a bad roommate situation. I didn't get to do my normal checks on the area, but I figured it would be okay because I was relatively familiar with the area. I live in a quadplex and have a bottom 1-bedroom apartment. I thought that everything should be fine because I had seen what I thought was all of the other tenants when I went to look at the apartment. Well, I had not seen everyone. My direct upstairs neighbor was a greasy white man that was beer belly fat, and he was in his mid-60s, and gave me a really bad gut feeling. When I moved in, I also worked kind of odd hours, and I would be getting home between 10 p.m. to 2 a.m., depending on which job I was working. I am a fairly quiet person as well. I occasionally listen to music on a speaker, but it's always a moderate volume and during the day. I came home one night at around 11 p.m. and had entered my house and was trying to make some leftovers for dinner and watching a video on my phone, when my direct upstairs neighbor, we'll call him Kevin, came down the stairs and was banging on my door and repeatedly ringing my doorbell. He was making like 1,000 times more noise than I had been collectively over the month that I had been there. I answered the door and he was pissed, saying that I need to stop banging around and quiet hours were at 10 p.m. and that I was being inconsiderate and many more. I was not making any noise outside of normal living noises. The banging was me shutting my car door once. This set the tone for our relationship going forward. He would get pissed at me coming home from work and closing my car door because he said it would wake him up. I tried to explain that I don't control my work schedule and he could also try to not sleep with every single window open in his apartment, and then maybe the noise wouldn't be loud or noticeable. He vehemently hated that. Another few months go by, and Kevin comes down to my apartment holding 2 margaritas and tries to be all, "I'm sorry, we started off on the wrong foot. Let's make amends," and all other excuses. But he was being kind of weird, and it seemed like he was trying way too hard to hide his excitement or something. I agreed and said that if he has a problem, we can discuss it like normal adults and vice versa. He was a little too eager to agree and tried to give me the second margarita. I declined because I was underage and I don't accept drinks from strangers. He insisted and practically shoved the margarita in my hand. I felt super uneasy and reluctantly accepted. He almost demanded that I drink it as a toast to our newfound civility. I pretend to take a sip. I ended the conversation, unclosed and locked my door. I dumped the margarita and felt really grossed out by the whole situation. I'm fairly certain that he attempted to drug me, and I don't even want to think about what he would have done if I had drank the margarita. I'm so glad he moved out. So, creepy neighbor Kevin, let's not meet again. Higher drunk guy tried to stab me and my family by you/Sirkin Weeps. Yeah, that's not clickbait. It's been ages since I hopped on Reddit, but here I am to bring a story to you all that happened not too long ago. And while it happened to me, it didn't start with me, but my mother, though somehow I became the focus of it. A couple weeks ago, my mom was coming back from the store at around 10 p.m., got herself a pack of cigarettes, and was hanging out with a friend of hers as she did so. On their way back, they came across Jeremy. It was a guy they have both, and even I, have seen a couple times. Nothing major, just an acquaintance that we all barely spoke to. Though, he was either high as hell at this time, or drunk, or both, I don't know. I do know this wasn't how he usually acts. Jeremy was angry over something and came up to them and started screaming about wanting to do something to them, and then pulled his package out in public, and after both my mom and her friend tried to just walk out of the situation, he started attacking my mom. Both my mom and her friend started fighting back, and they managed to get him to stop and made their way back to her house, where I currently am at, unaware of what the hell is going on. However, note that I said stop and not leave. He lived in the same building as I do and was following them from a distance. So, they both made their way upstairs when my mom realized she had left her key inside. Nothing new. She was pretty forgetful, and I'm generally here to open the door when she does. Problem being, Jeremy made his way upstairs too, past where his floor is and onto ours. And he tried to fight her again. I opened the door to my mom shouting my name and being absolutely clueless as she entered and tried to close the door. But Jeremy pushed the door open before it could even be shut and made his way into our apartment. This is where I got involved. I grabbed a knife and threatened him to get out, which he did. And I have no idea how he managed to get this impression, but he seemed to think that I was trying to fight him, because after we made sure to slam the door the moment he exited and locked it, he started screaming at the top of his lungs about how we were pussies and to call the police, claiming that he knows the landlord and he can get him to delete any footage caught from the outside of the building and the hallways inside my building. My mom, being a quick thinker, started recording him from the door as he banged and kicked the door trying to open it. Eventually, he left when he heard that we actually were calling the cops. You think this would be over, right? Nope, it keeps going. After a couple of minutes, he returns to the door with a knife and starts stabbing our door while screaming and insulting us at the top of his lungs, saying that he will kill the cops too. The police can clearly hear him from the phone, and I think that's why they came this time around. Since, as I mentioned in my last Reddit post, that these guys are absolutely useless. The doors in this building are strong stuff. Metal, I think? I don't know. But while he made some light holes and scratches, he couldn't do too much to it. So he shouts that he will be downstairs waiting for the cops, which we, of course, inform the cops currently on the phone of. And like perfect timing, while he makes his exit, they make their entrance both using 2 different elevators, as our building had 2. 4 officers knocked on our door, and we opened up and told them what was going on and what happened from start to finish. While my mom showed the cops the footage she recorded, I was taking pictures of the damages to the door. The cops, clearly not wanting to be here, begrudgingly said to come downstairs with them. So, me and my mom did, to which we heard screaming from the first floor. We're on the 5th floor, and we heard him perfectly, though his screaming stopped real quick when 4 cops showed up. He instantly went, "Oh, shit," and played nice with the cops. The cops were not having any of it and arrested Jeremy there and then. His friends were eventually there asking what did he do and screaming and shouting at the cops before eventually running off. Jeremy was taken away. I sent the damages of the door to lawyers, and I don't know what happened about that. Silence. Just silence. So this is where the story ends, right? Nope. Jeremy got off with a restraining order, and though since he lived in the same building as us, we couldn't stop him from simply being in the building. He was only not allowed to talk to us or cause any problems. This did not last long. On my way to the store maybe 2 weeks later, he and his friends were all outside the building in a group, chatting and drinking, and when I walked out, Jeremy instantly switched up the topic, saying, "You see that kid? I'm gonna mess him up. He got the cops on me. I wanted to get away from that as soon as possible, but I had already left the building and would need to get close to the group that I just finished taking my first couple steps away from in order to get back inside. So, I quickly made my way to the store, since I would be in public with people present. I end up just getting everything I need from the store while trying to call my mom to tell her what happened. But she didn't answer. Great. And here's where I admit that I was a little dumb. I should have instantly called the cops, but I didn't. I didn't remember what Jeremy was wearing, and I am honestly a wreck with anxiety. I wanted to first see if the group was still there before I attempted to make a phone call. They weren't, and I quickly made my way upstairs and informed my mom, who calmed me down and got me to call the police. The exact same police as last time showed up, and thank God for that, since they were all well aware of Jeremy being a nutcase from last time. But this time, we had no proof, other than what would just end up being a he said, she said scenario. So, they had us sit in the hallway while they called their boss to make sure that the arrest would be okay due to the previous history and restraining order. All the while, Jeremy was in the staircase, laughing and being extremely loud with his friends and his sister, from what I later learned. Eventually, the police got an okay from their boss, and we all made our way to the staircase. I tried to stay out of sight as possible as they once again arrested him. Jeremy claimed to be unaware of what he was being arrested for, and his friends left once again. His sister, who was in her mid-20s from what I could guess, was screaming though, insulting them and saying that he was being arrested for no reason. Jeremy was hauled away again, and I have no idea what happened. No calls from attorneys or the police, no nothing. Though I ended up seeing him within the week, straying from eye contact with me and my family. Usually walks away the moment he sees us. I wish more came of this, but I'm happy that we are being left alone all the same. Though, he is always pissed at seeing me. The Time a Creepy Neighbor Tried to Stab Me by u/funfetti_dragon. This happened in 2008 when I was 9 years old. I lived in a townhome community where each road had two sides of homes. In between the back of the houses, there was a back road with alleyways that went in between each building section. I lived on the edge of one of these, and my townhome was on one of the alleyways. I lived on one street, and across the back road on the opposite side lived an elderly woman whose name I don't even know. I'm not sure what her situation was, but for whatever reason, she never liked me specifically. She was creepy and spray painted all over windows so no one could see in her house. However, that never stopped her from sometimes staring out of her bedroom window directly at mine and keeping it open at night to shine a red strobe light into my room across the way. She used to yell at how she hated us. I was in the 4th grade, and on a particular January morning, I had unfortunately missed the bus. My dad sent me outside to get in the car so he could drive me, and he said that he'd follow me out soon. As I was walking to my dad's car, she came out of the alleyway next to my house, slowly, with a gigantic kitchen knife behind her back. She raised it and started running after me. I was faster than her, so I was able to avoid her and was able to get into the house. She walked and stood onto the neighbor's porch across the way and stared at my house. I was terrified. My dad ran out and yelled at her, and she said that she wanted to get rid of us stupid kids. My parents called the police, but the police sent her home and had an ambulance pick her up later. My parents went to some kind of court meeting about it, but I don't really know the details. I didn't see her again after that, until 1 year later. I don't remember the day, but it had snowed that morning, so I was going to run out of the front door and play in the snow. I opened the door to see her standing on the porch, but looking out towards the road. I panicked. I closed and locked the door, and I ran up to my parents' room and told them what happened. And we saw her walk off the porch up the street. I never saw her again after that, and my family has since moved far away from there. But people I know say that she still lives there, and her windows are still the same spray-painted windows. Though it doesn't affect me as much as it used to, I still don't like being around knives. My old neighbor who broke into my house when I was 11 to hide from the cops. Let's not meet. By u/paranoid and geeky. So, when I was 11, I lived in a pretty bad neighborhood. To paint a picture, there were very common street races, gunfights, and fight clubs around. I actually was tricked into joining one at one point and never could leave my house after I didn't go back. All this in mind, I hated being home alone, and my parents, knowing this, allowed me to have a friend over whenever they would be out late to keep me calm, as I had or have heavy anxiety. I had a neighbor who was a boy around my age, maybe a little older, and when I went outside to play or walk my dog, he would talk to me, so he wasn't a complete stranger, and we'll call him R.A. or Runaway. One day, my parents were going out on a date night and would be out really late, around 2 to 3 a.m. So they said that I could have a sleepover with my best friend. All was going well, and we were playing some video games in the living room, when suddenly, around midnight, my neighbors started crawling through my dining room window. As someone who has heavy anxiety, I was prepared for such a situation and had a knife on me, and I instructed my best friend to get my dog since he is fiercely protective. I wasn't scared of this kid since I've seen him fight, and I figured that I could take him if I needed to, with all my precautions in place. The conversation isn't word for word, but it went similar to this. I said, "What the hell? Why are you crawling through my window? What do you want?" R.A. answered, "Whoa, relax. I just wanted to hang out with you and your friend. I could hear you laughing from my house and I wanted to join in." I told him, "You're not supposed to be here. My mom and dad would get mad." R.A. answered, "I just want to hang out for a little bit, get some food, play some games. Come on." Then he refused to leave, and I don't remember most of what I said. I didn't feel threatened, and I decided to let him stay since he wouldn't take no as an answer. He stole a good amount of my food too. One thing I noticed was he was avoiding the windows, but he didn't make it obvious, so I tried not to think about it since I was scared. He went home after about an hour, and my friend and I didn't think much of it. The next morning, I was in the front yard doing God knows what when I see R.A. getting his ass beat and screamed by his older sister. I laughed and asked what he did, and she told me something that made my blood freeze. She told me that he was hiding from the cops as he beat some kid so bad he sent him to the hospital and damaged some property at the school where the fight took place. I avoided that house and those kids as much as possible, and we moved shortly after that. So, kid who ran away from the cops and into my house, let's not meet. Hello everyone, it's your creepy sister here. Thank you so much for watching the video. I really appreciate each and every one of you. But I would also like to thank my amazing patrons, my top tippers, and my dearest channel members. Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it with all of my heart. If you want to support the channel further, you could also choose to become a patron, a tipper, or a channel member. But remember, it's appreciated, but never a requirement. I would also like to announce that we have merch now. The link is in the description of the video, along with all my other social media links, like my Discord server, Twitter, Instagram, and others. You can connect with me and send your stories there. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and comments are highly appreciated. And remember, your fear feeds me.